It's go time.
Welcome, everyone, to Quick Kicks here on Third Down Gamble. I'm Don Charbon along with Heath Graham, and tonight a special guest from TSN, Jamie Reidel, who is producer of the CFL on TSN and golf at TSN. Jamie, welcome to the program.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure to be here.
It's awesome to have you. Now, let's get to know you. Where did you grow up? Where did you get your start in life?
Well, I'm born and raised in Kitchener, Ontario area, which is for people that don't know, is about an hour west of Toronto. Still live there. I've never left. I used to commute when I started at TSN, and now I pretty much predominantly work at home, except when I'm doing shows at the studio. So played sports my whole life, followed sports my whole life. My dad was a big sports fan. Me and my brother played sports all growing up. Hockey, baseball, basketball, everything. A little bit of flag football, never played tackle or touch football. Golf. I played golf growing up, still do. Yeah, it's getting the job at TSN was pretty much a dream job considering I followed sports my whole life.
And how did that come about?
I went to Conestoga College, so I went to their broadcasting program, which is an excellent program. And I happened to apply. The guy who was in charge of our TV, Mike DeBoule was his name. He brought me a sheet that was being passed around that TSN had a internship program. It was called the BEST. It was an acronym for something, I don't remember what. And I applied and I got it in September of '96. I did 2 months internship at TSN in my last year of college, which is my third year. Pretty much knew I was probably going to get hired when I graduated in April. And that happened. I started in April of '97 at TSN in the newsroom. Started there on sports desk back then, not sports center. Yeah, it's a long time ago. And then I've just kind of done a bunch of different jobs going through. I did features for a bit at TSN, worked on TSN Extra, which was a show that was kind of a reporter's show with features, until I was offered the gig of golf in 2004. So I started doing majors around 2002, but I started doing the Masters in 2004. And then CFL was 2009 when it was the second year after we got all the games, the rights to show all the games. They added a second studio producer, and that was me, and been doing that ever since.
When you were at college, was it your focus to become a producer?
I initially wanted to be on air. I did some on air work for local Rogers and stuff like that, but I took the first job. Like, honestly, I was just about to send my resume. I probably would have started working at the local Rogers TV, doing a whole bunch of jobs, because when we were in college, part of our course was to work for them. We did you worked in every area of television, cameras, audio, directing, technical directing, reporter. We did a whole bunch of stuff in that. And I did want to be on air, but then I started at TSN, and then Jim Thompson, who was a former boss at TSN, he was there at my final year graduation ceremony, presenting me with the certificate for the TSN Best program. And he said, go and do on air right away, because the further you get behind the scenes, the harder it is to do that. And he was right. Had a great career, and it's been a long time at TSN. I'm 27 years at TSN in April, which is crazy. It's been a great ride.
Now, growing up in Southern Ontario, was the CFL part of your sports fandom as a kid? And was it Tiger Cats or Argos at that time?
My dad, it was mostly Argos. My dad wasn't the biggest CFL fan. He was more an NFL guy. So we watched a lot of NFL together. But again, occasional games on the CFL. Did go to a couple Argo games here and there, but it was mostly Argos household. Of course, Grey Cups were, there were parties all the time for Grey Cups that my parents would take us to and everything. And I knew the CFL and watched it, but it wasn't like my priority. Even just before I got the job at TSN, I had a mild interest in the CFL, but they wanted me to help produce. And, once you immerse yourself into it, you guys know, it's a fun league. It's a fantastic league. I've grown to love it. There's some things that we all want to change about it. I've done a lot of things with a lot of sports. CFL football players I think for the most part, appreciate you covering them. There's a lot of great players over the years, and it's a great little league, right? It is what it is. It's not the NFL and never will be, but it has its own little niche in the football community, and an important one because it really is the only one that survived the test of time out of every other football league that comes around. So I've really enjoyed I guess if I do the math, 2009, 15 years, crazy.
Now, do you see interest in the CFL growing, especially south of the border? I know they've had a few television contracts and streaming contracts over the last couple of seasons. Do you have any kind of finger on the pulse of how that looks?
I think people start to notice it every time you get a guy that's gone to one of the big schools, the big Power Five conferences in the NCAA. Like those are the guys that garner the interest for people. But it's funny when I'm down at golf events, how many times there was a producer that worked in New York I talked every time I was down there at a PGA Championship or US Open that he was there. We talked CFL football all the time. He loved it. There were like two or three of them. There's a couple every once in a while. There's a fan that knows exactly. They'll see TSN and they'll be like, and they'll start talking CFL. Again, it's going to be what it is. I don't know what the US ratings are. I think CBS was pretty happy with how it went the first year with their contract on CBS Sports Network. Again, it's a fun league. Like when they had the slogan "No lead is safe," it's actually true that you really can be down 21 points with 8 minutes left and come back and win a game. You can't always say that for the NFL. If nothing of a bad game, if it's a bad game, at least you're getting a good finish for the most part. At least close finishes, there's tons of them because you're never really out of it. It's funny. It's hard. Oh, unless you were the Argos in the East final, they were finally out of it. But even the start of the second half, they weren't out of it. So that's what makes the league fun, in my opinion, is that you're going to get a big play here or two that's going to change the course of the game and flip the momentum.
And it is the flow of the game as well. One thing
Right.
that I think frustrates CFL fans that watch NFL is after the 2-minute warning, if you've got the ball in a first down, it's pretty much game over. Whereas we just keep running plays, and the way the clock operates, it must be an exciting time from the production aspect of it as well, just knowing that all eyes are on and crazy things can happen.
That short play clock, when it's not 40 seconds. And the 3 downs, right? So you can't just kneel 3 times and hope. The 3 downs and the shorter play clock makes for action in the last 3 minutes. It's what makes the league great, that aspect of it.
Producing CFL on TSN, what do people come to you to ask you to do?
I essentially run the entire content portion of the CFL on TSN on digital, some social, Sports Center, our preview shows. So I'm basically the lead studio guy. I have another producer, Troy White, who does a few other things, but he's also my partner planning everything that we do CFL wise for TSN year round, which it is now a year round thing. Like it never used to be, but it is now. Like when the Grey Cup ends, you have a little bit of a lull, but then free agency, you're starting to worry about building up some stuff for free agency, and then the combine comes up, and then the draft, and then we're right at the start of the season. So it really is a year-round thing, and we treat it that way. Obviously, there is some downtime in the off season with CFL content, but there's little things here and there. Once free agency starts, then you start getting a little bit more content. We'll have a little bit of draft content. We do the draft. We have a couple guys going to the combine. We'll do a couple things there. And then once the draft is done, training camps are basically starting. So we're ramping up our preseason preview shows. So basically everything, Troy and I, we run that content and build that content for all the shows, all the studio shows.
Are you in studio every game day?
Not every game day. We split the games. Monday to Friday, we're on calls and planning meetings. And now, with with the gambling and everything. We do calls with them. We got content calls all through the week. We're assigning duties to do for everything. We've gotten pretty good the last few years of at least doing a couple of items every day. At least if you have one or two new items that at least go digital. Not everything goes to Sports Center, but everything's on digital. It gets shared out socially. And then we have some social guys on our bar down team, Luca and Thomas, who've been doing this Huddle Up show, and they're involved in CFL, and they're a different way of doing it, which is good. And they're great guys, and they love the CFL, and they try and bring in a younger audience, which is what we're trying to do, which is what everybody's trying to do. And I think it's working. I think the audience has gotten younger because I've said it for a while that the CFL missed my generation a little bit. I think for me, just in my personal experience and my friends, I don't know if they didn't appeal to us or if it's just a lot of it is parents, right? If you're in Regina, it's all passed down, right? That's why Rider Nation is so strong, because it's all passed down. Fathers watch it to their sons and daughters, and it keeps going down the generations. That didn't happen with me. And so we have to capture those kids. Ever since I've been on the CFL and TSN, it's been that effort to try and find items that we can do that appeal to everybody and entertain people, because that's essentially what we're in. We're in the entertainment business.
We talk about a lost generation, and I know Chris Cuthbert has said part of the reason why he became an Ottawa, at that time, Rough Rider fan was because the Argos and the Ticats were blacked out.
Right.
So how do you catch up with the league if you can't see the games on TV?
Obviously better now because every game's on television. That wasn't always the case. Broadcast isn't everything. You have to introduce stars. Everything is star driven. And if you get the stars and you bring the stars to the people, they'll watch the content. And I think gambling will help the CFL in the end, because younger people are gambling. And if you have a solid platform there, it makes you want to watch the games. And especially in CFL games, like they flip on a dime. So like if you're doing fantasy or if you're betting, like I think a lot of the NFL's power is fantasy. Everybody's in a fantasy football league. And if you're not, you may not watch it. Everybody's in it. The CFL could be better fantasy wise. And then the gambling will start. Like that stuff just brings in, if you got some action on the game, you may pay attention to the game. And then you watch the next game. Maybe not even if you're betting on it or not. That's the whole thing. That's, it's what they tried to do with Thursday Night Football, is try and bring the kids in and do concerts and everything like that. And it worked a little bit. So I think the progress is getting there. And I think you see more kids. I've been out to stadiums and you see more young kids at games, and that's good. That's good for everything. It's good for our audience. It's good for revenue for the CFL and all the teams.
What would you say is the biggest difference in how people consume content now as opposed to when you started with the CFL 15 years ago? Is it really social media driven, or is it just kind of streaming?
I think it's a lot, like it's getting that way. Like my kids are never going to have a cable package ever. They don't watch live television. My children don't watch live television. My children are 17, 15, and 13. We don't watch live television anymore. So you have to find those ways. Social is a big thing. Everybody's streaming games, so that's got to keep going. Obviously, there's still people that watch it on television, on TSN, and it's just, you got to be more creative. You got to produce content that can go 5 or 6 different ways instead of maybe 1 or 2. That's the big challenge, and things that capture you right away, because the attention span of people nowadays is so different than it was when we were kids. If you don't capture them right away, they're gone. So you gotta have something that's snappy to keep them interested.
Let's get back to the actual CFL on TSN production. Now, weekend's over. The Sunday night game is done. Monday morning, what are you guys doing? What are you talking about? How are you planning for the next week? What goes through your minds, and who gets what assignments?
Yeah, Monday Troy and I talk every day, about almost every day. We do take days off at times. One of us is working the weekend games and one of us is doing everything else. So we're on calls. We're on content calls with the panelists. We're on content calls with other producers, planning out what we want to do for the week, You know, a lot of the last couple of years, it's been highlighting big games and just hammering that game for the whole week. That's kind of what we've been doing. Like it didn't turn out to be something, but an example of that was when the Argos and Bombers were playing week 16 or 17, whatever it was. We hammered that game, and then Chad Kelly was told they said he wasn't playing. So, but we still that was the content. Like when Winnipeg and BC were playing early in the season for first place, or I guess middle of the season, those were the games that we were hammering that mean something. A lot of it is trying to figure out where we want to go. We do a CFL spotlight, which it's not a straight FanDuel thing, but it's a FanDuel thing with information. So our philosophy on that is to not really pump the line, but give the information. Try and be as natural as possible about giving information. But it does shine a spotlight on players in the league that need to be shined the light on. For example, like Brady Oliveira when he started off going well. Any chance we can pump him, or Chad Kelly, or Eugene Lewis, or Vernon Adams, any of those guys, that's what we try and do with that segment, is to try and tell a good story and highlight a player that's really going well right now. But those meetings happen, we're pretty much on calls Monday, Tuesday. We edit stuff every day. We have editing every day to try and do content from Monday to Sunday on SportsCenter, or at least on digital. So it's a beast. Like it's a lot of work, and especially during the playoff time and Grey Cup, like it just ramps up even more. But we're pretty much planning all through the week, and then we got the shows on the weekend. Because when we don't have the panel together for a game, we have to come up with other ideas. So sometimes Troy and I will talk on the last day of the week. So Sundays in the summer, and we'll tape something that we could use Monday or Tuesday that's relevant to the next week when we have the panel with us. Otherwise, it's individual little voice segments, or they tape stuff from home. Like that's the beauty of it, like we're doing right here. Like the beauty of it now is we can do things from home. Most of our guys have equipment at home, or ways to do it. That's how we do a lot of our stuff. Like Milt does a bunch of stuff for us every week from Atlanta before he comes up to Toronto. Davis is at home. Matt's at home. It's pretty crazy what we can do now with the technology that we have.
Let's talk a little bit about the panel. And during game broadcasts, what goes on with the panel in studio when the game's going on? What kind of preparation for halftime and post-game notes is involved?
Yeah, before the game, we have a little production meeting, especially for pre-games. When we're doing little quick-ons where it's 8-minute kickoff, we will still talk. And then we have a plan at halftime. They all have a lineup or a script that we wanted to do for the week or for the day. So at halftime, it's the guys are charting plays, writing down stuff, and trying to find interesting tidbits that they can do for halftime, that we can build our little roles for them when we're analyzing the game as it happens. And a lot of times they're communicating with me any plays that they want, and then I relay it to our guys in tape. And we have great producers in tape and great tape ops that put together those roles. If they want to draw something up, we have technology for that. It's not a telestrator, but it's called a libero. It's just basically a computer that we have a guy there waiting to draw up plays, and you can do. It's got a lot of all the regular tools that you see on any football broadcast, whether you're spot shadowing a guy, or whether you're actually moving them. You can take them and move them. You can rotate the thing. So it's a little bit more produced. If we really want to go over a play that was important or teach, we do those. So we may do one or two of those in a halftime. You never know, but it all depends on what's going on. But again, if Vernon Adams is coming back from injury and he's playing his first game, he's the focus. So there's always focuses. There's always things we're looking at. I always listen to what they say before the game, because what they say before the game, it's always nice to follow that up. We do a thing we call key matchups generally right before kickoff. And if one of those key matchups is coming into play in that first half, we should highlight that, because that's something we were telling the fans to look out for. And hey, it happened right here in the first quarter, bang bang. And however what, Eugene Lewis, we know he's great at jump balls. Look, we said that it would be hard for this DB to match up with him. And if it happened, we got to follow that up. It's we try and be story driven as much as we can in a game, as well as analyze any plays. And of course, philosophy is if you're not entertaining people, then what are we doing? Like the NBA and TNT guys are the best for a reason. They educate you and they entertain you. And we try, I think our guys do that, or our panel does that as good as anybody in North American sports. It's a philosophy for us, and Kate's great at that. Kate and I have this similar ways to think of things, how we can just subtly throw in a little bit of fun, and the energy that she brings is phenomenal. And she is really great at those little things, about even taking digs at guys as we're going to break and all that stuff. She's really great at that, and that's what makes the panel pretty entertaining. She's a big part of that.
She definitely keeps Davis and Milt on their toes. She's pretty quick to throw things their way and get them fired up.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like, my philosophy is you got to try stuff, and if it doesn't, not everything's going to work. We all know that. But we have to try things, and we have to try and be different, and we have to try and bring different energy and things to the game. Like, even segments wise, we like to have, Troy and I plan out certain things. Do we like this idea? Is this something we like to do? One of the segments we're trying to do, for years I've been trying to figure out a way to do a You Got Mossed type segment. It's one of those things that everybody knows, right? So we started doing a segment called Straight Fire last year, and I hope it sticks. We did it a few times. It's just basically 90 seconds of great highlights. But the goal for me in this segment, hopefully people listening can clue in. We want everybody from junior football, youth sports football, high school football, anything. Send us your plays. Send us your plays, and maybe they'll get featured on this segment on the CFL and TSN. And again, if you got a high school kid who's going to be on the CFL and TSN, maybe he's going to tune in for that game because he might be on it, and then maybe they become a fan. Those are the kind of ways that we're trying to build a younger fan base. And we got a few brought in, a couple of youth sports teams. I dug around for youth sports ones, but I need more engagement from that. But again, just the start. But this is a segment that I think will be interesting and hopefully grows an audience as well with it, not only being entertaining. And our panel is able to present those things very, very well. And it's quick. That's the thing. It's quick. It may translate to Sports Center. It definitely will translate to social. So those are the types of segments that we plan out on a weekly basis on this, or to try and come up with ideas for that on a weekly basis.
How much communication do you have with the guys in the booth? Rod, Dwayne, Dustin, are they in on these meetings?
Generally, they are not. They have their meetings with the producers, the game producers. They all know what we're doing. Every week I send out kind of a CFL missive about what's coming up this week, what kind of content we have. Every game, we're always asking our truck guys for stuff. What players we want shot that we can show during our chats, any sort of crowd shots that we need, any sort of tailgate shots that we need, interviews that we would need for a pregame. What a reporter, like in our pregames, we always have the reporter first. We always go to the stadium first and have the reporter come on. A lot of those things is how they get to know what we're going to do in the show, and that's all shared with the producers, the talent, with Rod, Dwayne, Glenn, Marshall, Dustin. They're all in on these emails that we send out when we have our show lineup. They listen too, right? They listen to what we do. They can't always see us, but they listen to what they're saying and will respond. Rod especially is really good at that.
That probably stems from Rod being a panel host, right, for quite some time as well.
Yeah, I've been in my 15 years, I've been very fortunate for panel hosts. When when you have Dave Randorf and Rod Smith and Kate Beirness, and then James for the playoffs comes in and does stuff like I'm blessed to have really, really great hosts. It makes it easy to work. It makes it easy to do things when you know they can handle whatever you're going to throw at them.
What's involved in determining the players that get mic'd up for a game?
Usually I used to do that, and now that's a separate entity now. But we try and mic the quarterbacks now our philosophy is to mic every quarterback, both quarterbacks, both games. And then we try a person on defense. So it's generally a linebacker or something where we can get a lot of good sound from, because the sounds of the game has kind of changed over the years from a weekly show to kind of it's more, and this is where the social aspect goes to it. That's kind of gone social, and then every month they'll have a monthly show that goes on TSN. So it's not a weekly show anymore, but it is more of a social share.
So how many people are responsible to you for a broadcast? What's your crew size?
We're basically, the crew in the studio. We always have 4 cameras. Usually have a lighting person, and then up in the control room, we got about 10 or 11 people. We got about 25 people that work on each broadcast from the studio perspective.
And is that like herding cats at times?
Herding the talent is sometimes harder than getting everybody else on board. Everybody's pretty good, or may just be herding me. Actually, sometimes it's like, where's Jamie at? It's a lot of people, and we need it though. We got so many things coming in. The one thing we don't have is we don't have multiple games. We usually have one game at a time, and then sometimes with the doubleheaders, you might get a little bit of overlap. It's what's different than hockey is we get to focus on one game at a time pretty much, and then transition to another game if we have a doubleheader. We got great crews that do a lot of good work, and it's not easy because nowadays we're really relying on our tape department to kind of cut everything, and we only have one of them. They cut all our roll-ins, they get all our stats and everything that comes from the truck. All that, when we have a pregame and we have a list of players that's 10 to 15 long that they're getting in, and they got to clip them, put them in playlists and everything, and so that we can roll it out come when the show starts. It gets pretty busy. The tape department is very busy on a game basis.
How much would the job exponentiate if you did have games that were running at the same time?
That part is, I would rather a game end 10 minutes early, because our people can talk. We can talk about a game ending, throw in interviews, and then transition to the next game. That's where communication is essential when you're communicating with, it's me really running the ship to try and join these 2 games. I'm always talking to the second game's producer on whether we can hold kickoff for a couple of minutes, how the game's going, because if it's coming down to the end. So when we on a normal doubleheader, we usually have a 7:08. Say it's an evening game, we have a 7:08 kickoff, and then the next game is either 10 or 12 minutes after. So we have a little bit of a buffer for that. But there are times when it gets really close, where sometimes we have to, if we have to double box the kickoff, and then have Kate come in and say, hey, this game is on TSN 3, stay with us, and then this game on TSN 1 will keep us until the game's over, and then we'll head over to BC or wherever we're going. That's where communication is with my production assistant, who's talking to our master controls, who need to know what we're doing, and then communicating with both trucks, where we gotta tell one truck to not talk and then pick it up, and then the other truck takes it on another station. It's just essential for the communication. Just being we have protocols. We have protocols that are out every day, and if we know where we can go, like every doubleheader I come in, I know that TSN 5 is available to just be the second game if it overlaps. So we have a place to go, and then the other ones will stay with it, and then we'll join TSN 5 for the second game after. So we always know where we can go and be just the second game if need be. It doesn't happen that often, actually. Nowadays, more times now with the overlap doubleheader, we just know that it's futile. The early game's not gonna end in time to start after 2.5 hours. We know we're starting on one station at 9:30, and we do a little open there and they go off. It's just managing the time. That's all it is. And being calm. I've been with producers that aren't calm, and that's not any way to go. If I panic, then everybody's panicking because I'm the one in charge. You just take a breath and then you make quick decisions. It's those are the best parts because that's when you're actually producing because you're actually thinking on the fly. You're not looking at your lineup and going, we're going here, here, and here. Like weather delays, for example. That's just flying by the seat of our pants all the time because you can only prepare a certain amount of stuff for it. And we have a bunch of content that we can go to, but guys, we're talking about this game for 5 minutes. And you're going to go, and then I'm going to have a plan in my head for the next block. So that's the fun part, though, when you're doing stuff like that. That's live television fun.
Are you able to be a fan at the same time as produce? Are there moments where you're like, holy crap, what just happened there?
You can, and we do. And if we ever had a camera that just streamed of the reaction of the panel sometimes, like they're fans too. Like when a big play is happening, they're like up off their seats and they're yelling in the thing. But then you just got to regroup and say, okay, this is what you can be a fan for a second, start, especially on a play at the end of the game where they're coming to us, or we're going live into Sports Center 5 minutes after the game ends. Okay, this was great, but we have to move on.
How much more difficult is a remote when you're actually at the stadium?
Yeah, it is stuff. We always have a control room back at TSN where we still run all our tapes and everything out of TSN, but it's a challenge because I'm now sharing a truck with our truck producer. So he's got to get in the chair to prepare for his game. I got to be in the chair to produce the show. Then he's got to get in to actually produce the game. So it's a lot of give and take, and it's a lot of communication. It's especially back there, you have to really be on it. And we have great people that work and are able to just follow along and do what happens. But it's got to be communicated. And I got to communicate with John or Chris or Mike, our tremendous truck producers, and they got to know. And then I got the directors too, Don and Andy and Franklin, like they're directing a game too, as well as our stuff that we're doing. And they really need to know what we're doing. It's a lot of shuffling. It's a lot of shuffling in and out of chairs. It's not the easiest. It's not the way I would like to do things mostly, even though I love being at the stadium for some of these games. But it's hard. It's hard to do it because you're doing everything remotely. If we're doing roll-ins, we can show them a little bit, but only a certain time. We can get them to see their roll-ins, but we also got to get their attention because a lot of times the guys are watching the game from the sideline and then heading over to the set and they're communicating with me through text. Hey, can we get this shot, and this shot? And I'm sending that off to our tape department who's cutting that. And so they hop in the chair. They may have been on the sideline watching the game. Hurting them on is tough sometimes because they want to be on the sideline watching the game, not necessarily on our set.
So in stadium, playoff games are a given. A couple other games throughout the season. Is it the right number of games that you're doing in stadium right now? Would you like to see more or less, or is it a pretty good balance?
I personally, and again, we're all on budgets and revenues and everything, but I would like the panel to be on site at every stadium once a year. Would be my preference. You get a sponsor and they, a mini, how I would equate it as a mini college game day once in every stadium during the year. Again, it's a pipe dream as far as budgets go these days, but I think that would be ideal.
Grey Cup Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
How much effort does that take to pull that off?
Grey Cup Sunday. So I've been doing that show for 3 years, 5 hours. It is a beast. It used to be, everybody's working with less people. So Troy and I are basically running during the playoffs, all the content. We're taping hits during Grey Cup week. We're at all the press conferences. Plus, he's producing Grey Cup Saturday, and I'm producing Grey Cup Sunday. We're doing everything, just 2 of us. It used to be 4 or 5. That lineup is a beast, putting that together. And trying to give everybody the right amount of time, balance that time, ways to where we want to put features and everything. Plus you're planning all those features, right? So like when James is sitting down with the coaches and when Matt's sitting down with the quarterbacks, I'm in those as well, writing down what they're saying and trying to help our guys back in Toronto who are cutting all these things to help them be easier. So, it's a process. And again, like we have guys, Nick Romano and Stefan and Blake Rubin. They save us all the time. Guys like Jeff Kamada, they save us all the time. Javid Khan is a guy that works with us a lot and does a lot of great stuff. He edits his own stuff, and he can edit his own stuff, and he comes up with creative things, and he's brilliant at what he does. And he's been part of our crew the last couple of years. We don't get to air without those guys at all. It's tough, like because those things happen on Wednesday or Thursday. Now it happened a day earlier. You get those in, and those guys are cutting things on Friday and Saturday. So we're getting that stuff Sunday sometimes, maybe late Saturday. Even the big features that we do, you try and do as much in advance, but you don't know the teams until the week before. So some of those interviews are being done week of. And so our great features producers, Tracy and Rob Dunn and Matt Dunn and Simon and I'm missing people. I guarantee it. Craig Chambers and Matt Cade and Matt Dorman, like these guys are amazing and can turn around things very quickly. And it's important that we do. And, that show again, the one thing I worry about in that show the most is making sure we time out field pass, because you need every player on there. How we do field pass day before we have a big meeting. So Saturday night we have a big production meeting with everybody. So everybody that's involved, with Glenn and Rod as well, and John Hides and Andy Bayukas and everybody that's involved. I break off with the panels and we do drafts. We do a draft. It's like a fantasy draft of who they want to talk about for field pass, and that's the order, and that's how many we try and get. There's like seven people usually, so we try and get six people, so we try and get six each, so 36 players, but all 36 of those players need to be on the field. So that's like trying to time that out to make sure that everybody's on the field. And sometimes the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, they kind of drag people late, and you have to add to commercial breaks and maybe you have to move something. That one is if once we get that over, the rest of the show goes fine, and everything before that is a piece of cake. Usually, if I can get the commissioner where he needs to be for his interview, and we can get field pass taken care of, those are the two stretches. The commissioner's never missed, so he's fine. But we this year, especially with field pass, we had to add a minute and a half of breaks to make sure the defense was on the field before we went. And the last year before, I had to go into Matt Dunnigan's ear and say, Matt, he is not here. Go to your next one. We'll come back to him. And we did. This year, Adam Bighill, one of the guys. So we had to go to a shot of him in the locker room. We finally got a shot of him in the locker room. So it's a lot of shuffling. And our director, Don, and they have a list. They have the list and what cameras these players are going to be on. So if you jog that list, now they got to figure out where. So that one is a beast. And that communication has to happen. And I'm now saying I got to go to green. And the first year we hit it a home run, and then you knew it wasn't going to be like that every other year. So it's a matter of catching up.
Now you talked about doing a on-site at every CFL stadium in a season. What else would you like to see TSN do better with the CFL?
I think we just got to keep evolving. We can't just sit. Our preview show and our control shows, I always strive to change it up, change the paces, all that stuff. I just think we need to keep evolving with the times, try new things. Everybody will say we don't do it. I know what they say about us. We don't do enough, which I just don't agree with. Sorry, man. I do it every day. So I know what we do. We have a certain amount of resources and we stretch them to the limit to try and get as much content as we can out there. Could we do more content? Sure. But it's got to be smart content. It can't just be content to be content. It really has to be something that is going to matter and people are going to watch, because why else are we doing it? Then we're just throwing stuff on on digital or on social and nobody's watching it. It needs to be smart content. Every year I'm trying to think of new ideas that'll entertain people and that'll resonate with fans of all ages. Because, some people want a whole bunch of analysis, but then some people don't want that. So you have to find that mix always. So from my perspective, I think you have to keep evolving and you can't be stagnant in the product.
There's a few words to describe what goes on. You have to be nimble, creative, communicative, and agile.
That's exactly it. It's you got to listen too. You got to listen to what Rod and Dwayne and all our analysts are saying, and Glenn and Dustin and Marsh and Matt when he's in the booth, and Lapo when he was in the booth. You got to listen to those guys because they might have something that you might want to visit in halftime. I listen to the panelists I have my listen on to them all the time, and if they say something, who knows if we can use it. It's important to listen, and you listen to the players, what they're saying. If there's something, again, athletes don't say a lot of things a lot of times. Sometimes they're going to say something, and you got to take that, and then we can roll with it. That's a big thing too for a producer. You got to listen.
Bo Levi Mitchell's comments after the playoff loss this year probably a huge one for you.
Right, exactly. That again, Bo is going to be an incredible member of the TSN panel at some point. He's great to work with. He's a great guy, and he's got ideas. Those are the things you're listening for. You can react to, because that's something you can talk about that everybody's talking about. So why wouldn't we? If we are all talking about it as fans, and again, you can't just be every fan base. Every fan base has their own little things to talk about within their own little groups. But if everybody around the CFL is talking about it, we have to be.
Jamie, where can people find and follow you on the socials?
I am Jamie Reidel TSN on Twitter, Jamie Reidel on Instagram. My kids won't allow me to be on TikTok, so I'm not on TikTok. Too old, as they say. You can follow the CFL on TSN, but and again, like if people are out there listening, you're playing football, you make a great play, send me your highlights, and we can hopefully at least look at it and see if we pick it for the segment. And maybe we even do, like, my thought is maybe we even do a digital version of it that just runs on digital. We have 4 plays that run on the broadcast, but we got 15 that run digitally. I'm happy to talk CFL football with people, and I have with fans at times who ask questions. I try and be as honest as I can be, but yeah, always willing to listen. And if you're just doing the same thing, you're not doing the right thing. So we strive to try and be different every show, and every year.
Better flag football career, yourself or James Duthie?
Oh, probably James. He played with some CFL players. I just won a under U13 house league title. Jimmy was playing with Ticats, so J Duth probably has me on that one. Don't tell him. I hope he doesn't hear that, because I'll never hear the end.
Jamie Reidel, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
It was fun. It was fun, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to our show. Third Down Gamble is hosted on Podbean and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Follow us on Twitter at Third Down Gamble. Join us again at the Third Down Gamble podcast. Audio worth watching.
Third Down Gamble uses the expert resources provided by Canadian Football League player and game statistics for analytics, game notes, and statistics, and 3downnation.com for news, insight, and in-depth analysis. Please visit cfl.ca and 3downnation.com for the most up-to-date information on the Canadian Football League.